What a lovely day!
Welcome, Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Brian, Original D-Rose, Eli, Adam, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yo.
Good morning, good morning.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good morning, good morning.
Morning.
Hello. Good to have you all. Should you do a quick fire bit of housekeeping, as it's the start of a new week? Yes, Nathan, we're all really keen. Well, that's good to know. We're going to do it anyway, regardless of what you said, so that's good. Any evidence of a physical...
rhetorical anyway, that question.
Well, it'd be nice to get a yes, but any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature.
You're not getting a yes there.
Well, I have a bowler from years back. Well, I mean, he's around but years. He's trying to somehow geometry the optical phenomenon of an horizon. I don't like. I won't even tell you. I won't even tell you his questions. But they're trying to turn it into a geometric point again that moves around.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Hello.
Hello, Arvin.
You know it's
No.
spinning because there is no Coriolis deviation or any sign of motion.
They claim there's 15 degrees an hour drift, so to claim that the proof of Earth spinning is the fact that there's nothing being observed is absurd. We don't observe drift. That's the debunking of their claim that we will see the drift at 15 degrees an hour.
Yeah, but the drift still exists within the geometry and the math. But it doesn't actually happen, right? It's because of terrestrial refraction.
Okay. And the elves are real in the Tolkien novels. But does that mean that elves are real? I mean, they exist in the stories.
Yeah.
In the textbooks and in the language. No, they don't.
But they existed within Tolkien's mind before that. And if it exists in his mind, well, then it means that it can originally come from God and exist in other people's heads too, so it arguably exists.
Praise be to Shiva. I'm a gravity believer then in that case.
Well, there you go.
Well, yeah, I'm
If you live
converted.
in
Let's
the
pack it up,
Matrix.
lads. If it exists in your mind and you write it down and people believe in it and maybe you invent a language and learn it, then it's real, according to Arwin.
Yes, now you're getting it. That's heliocentrism in a nutshell.
Yeah, we're all kind of here because we've escaped that, though, eh? I mean, some of us. I was listening to your conversation in the pre-show. Fighting flat with flat. That's the way forward. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Sorry?
Any evidence of the distance to
Have you a
the
better
sun?
version?
Distance to the sun, you say?
Third time's
Well,
charm.
it's over there.
Take
You
that as
got
a
an
no.
angle. You could think of it having a distance based on a presupposition of the ground we're standing on, and then you derive the maths based on that presupposition, and then you claim a location that you can't really confirm because nobody's ever going to get there in order to actually confirm that.
The angular size of the...
Hold on, Brian. No, you'll need a flat Earth for that. So when you say you derive some maths, what you mean is you'll measure a flat plane. That's what you actually mean, isn't it, Arwin?
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't specifically excluding flat Earth. It's just the same. It's like, oh, it's the sun over a disk at, what is it, 3,000 miles. Like, oh, cool.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that really worked out mathematically, didn't it? So what's the confirmation it's actually there?
okay, there's only a couple of claims when it comes to distance to the sun, and they, as far as I can ascertain, have both come from the same place. In other words, there's the heliocentric claim of a globe Earth at 93 million miles to the sun, based on an R that's been derived from a heliocentric assumption, and then a distance to horizon measurement by Al-Biruni to give you an R value to be used in scaling with Venus as the same R value as Earth, so that you can scale it with Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. Okay, so we all know about that one because we say that string of words so often. However, there's another claimed to be, and I was doing air quotes, claimed to be in air quotes, a flat Earth claim of a distance to the sun and indeed moon, when we are, I don't want to say force fed because that's the wrong words, but at the feast of nonsense, when you first arrive at flat Earth, there is an hors d'oeuvre on the table that you can just pick up and pop it in your mouth without any particular worries. And it's a claim that has you measuring the height of the sun or moon. Now, in recent days, Brian, I believe, was the first to do this, at least a couple of weeks before anybody else, at least. And he was pointing out in terms of when you're measuring an angle, when you're doing celestial navigation to, say, the sun, if it's at 45 degrees now, well, later it's at 40 degrees, and later it's at 35 degrees, and so on until it reaches the horizon. Well, obviously, if you're going to use trig to derive the adjacent, no, not the adjacent, what are you driving on the triangle, Brian?
The opposite. You're looking for
the opposite, of
length.
course. It's the opposite your position you're measuring from. Opposite, right? If you're trying to derive the height. Sorry, go ahead. Who was that?
If you're taking it from the elevation angle, you're deriving the adjacent side, aren't you?
I thought it was the
opposite
adjacent.
would be the
That's
height
what I
of the
said
star.
first, isn't it? The opposite. It's on screen now. Look, let's just not get lost in hyperbole. Height. Are we all happy with height? Height.
Yes.
Right. You're trying to get the height from the triangle with trig, right? As on screen now, right? If you're using that methodology, well, as it moves throughout the day, it's getting closer and closer to the horizon. Now, the way I've paraphrased Brian's original genius rebuttal to their claim that flat earthers have got a height, because, no offence to Debay, but he was the first person I heard saying, well, the sun or moon are 3,000 miles away. Because if you do the trig they use, I mean, the trig that they bend a spherical triangle from the base being straight to curved, it makes no sense when they do it. But when they do it, obviously they've cherry-picked particular points to match up with their heliocentric assumption when deriving R and scaling it with Venus that just happens to match the maths. Now, I believe that is also on the table for your average Joe Normie, who's not a flat earther, to pick up, so that they can ascribe those reasonings behind their distance to the very far away sun, as Red Rhetoric did with his maths. But that isn't the official rhetoric in terms of deriving distance to sun. The scaling values with Kepler are. But the normies, both flat earthers and globe believers, who gobble at the feast of nonsense, end up with this situation where you've got a false dichotomy. Flat earthers saying it's 3,000 miles or 3,000 kilometres. It's been such a long time since I gobbled that feast of nonsense. But the globe earth is saying it's 93 million miles away, but based on a measurement that they can do themselves. So it's science, right? You know where I'm going. Anyway, that whole situation is a false dichotomy. Number one, until you got to that table of feast of nonsense, were you ever inclined to assert a distance? When you knew it was 93 million miles away, were you inclined to agree, disagree, claim a new distance, challenge it based on the changes that have occurred throughout history? No. You just accepted it based on face value from science, right? Well, it doesn't mean that when you relinquish that 93 million miles away sun, and every sod in the comments is saying, well, how far away is it then? That you suddenly have to give them an answer based on some nonsense rhetoric of measuring it when it's moving and getting closer to the horizon. In other words, you're shortening that length of the triangle with every minute that passes. So, no, you're not going to be able to get a distance if you're a flat earther, but you were told you could. And, you know, Eric Debay still does. I'm not knocking Eric Debay, although many do. I'm just saying that that's a feast of nonsense rhetoric that's been spewed out by Eric and others, that you need to suddenly have the other half of their very useful false dichotomy. But when there's all said and done, which one's going to be proven to be true when both measurements are shown to be flawed because it's moving towards the horizon? But yet we've got Kepler. Ah! So globe Earth, right, after all. The rest of you normies just didn't understand the complexities of heliocentrism.
Yeah, but what happened there was many years ago, I remember back in 2015 time, Glover started saying, if Earth was flat, the sun has to be 3,000 miles away. It was them that started that nonsense, and other people joined in with it on the flat Earth side. What they're not telling people is they're using the exact same thing when they're doing parallax. Because all they're doing, like these days, they'll talk about a chord through a sphere. But I remember them detailing parallax as you measure it off a complete flat Earth, then you add the R value, which is exactly the same thing as putting a chord through a sphere, right? And using that as your horizontal baseline. What they're doing is they're taking the very plain measurements of the celestial bodies that they're trying to strawman us with, and then claiming via R value in parallax that means that the celestial body is whatever distance away, the sun is whatever distance away. Right, this is the way they try to wrangle it in. So they're attacking you and charging you fraudulently, right, with a measurement that they actually use. They're using those actual supposed distances, not us. And they've been holding us to that for years, or they tried to for years. Not me, but I've watched other people get sucked into that, right, for years. And that's what they've been doing. But it's them that's doing this.
Before you launch into this, we got with the excellent dissemination of what's going on. However, the only bit I disagree with is when the us and them bit. The feast and nonsense, right, is the same dish for both sides. You ever had like a posh wedding or something, and they have like the men with the silver trays walking around? They got really complicated pastries that are delicious but tiny. And somebody spent a considerable amount of time wrapping up some tiny little bit of sausage in a bit of pastry and then just the right amount of olive so that it still rises. And you chuck it in your gob and you go, that's delicious. Well, all the ingredients in that tiny little hors d'oeuvre are the same. So if you gobble down at the Feast of Nonsense 93 million mile sun versus 3,000 mile sun, that's a complete dish. And it doesn't matter who eats the dish. You'll take whichever side. You might focus on the taste of the olive, but you might focus on the crispiness of the pastry. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same dish. The Feast of Nonsense is this complicated arrangement of stuff that anybody can eat, and depending on your palate, you'll extract whatever flavour you like. But the complete recipe is the important bit. The recipe typically consists of a false dichotomy. Who's off mute in G+?
I am sorry, I didn't realise.
Bloody alarm's going off. Me that's got the alarm going off. Give me 1 second, my alarm's going off for some reason. It's a Lego brick, it's not even an alarm I use.
Me.
He got his bit of his own desserts there, huh?
Thanks, Brian. I thought it was me at first. I was kind of worried.
Shut up, Lego brick. Yeah, unfortunately, the Lego brick's on a diffuser panel, and I was shoving another diffuser panel underneath it, and I wrenched it off the wall. It's on a French cleat, and everything on it, including that Lego brick alarm clock, flew across the room, and the panel landed on me. Fortunately, not destroying it. But now it seems to have decided it's going to have an alarm at 1 o'clock, which is nice. So I'll have to figure out how to pull the batteries out of that, so it doesn't do that every show. Anyway, it's a complicated dish. And every dish on the Feast of Nonsense is like it. They all consist of a false dichotomy. Globe Earthers say, in this instance, 93 million miles. And then part of the dish is how they measure it incorrectly. It's done on a scale. It's done with Kepler. We all know that. But they've all got these, well, look how we measure it. We can do this in physical reality. Therefore, it's physics. It's science. Okay, right. Well, they're doing it wrong. But then we take their methodology and measurement to say it's 3,000 miles. It's all part of the same dish. And you can pick all sorts of different examples of stuff that you just suddenly arrive as a flat earther and you've got all these prepackaged arguments. And you seem to, as a complete noob, know that the globe earth has got a counter argument to what it is and what you should be arguing against. And if you don't know, somebody will tell you, oh no, you're supposed to fight against this in this instance. Am I? Yeah. You're supposed to claim this and they're supposed to claim that, and that's how you argue about it. Now, put it in your mouth and swallow it. Get out of here. You silly noob. Come back for more whenever
You
you're
can
hungry.
only swallow it. I'm surprised Owen's not chipped in. You can only swallow it if you assume it's physical in the first place. And that's the trick with that one, the false dichotomy. They tried to force you into this trigonometric way of measuring an angle to a star and meaning that you can then do trigonometry. Something that until 10th brought all this stuff up. It was a difficult thing to deal with. It was just, as Owen would say, physicality, assumption bias. You just had to marvel and say, I don't know. But with this, we've now got a flat Earth proof and a flat sky proof. It's what we're measuring is distance. That's what that angle is. It's not a side length. It gives us a distance. We're gifted that because of the way in which the two parallel planes work. But like I say, until you've got all that, you are, in a way, stuck with the false dichotomy until you understand those things. I was guilty of it. Topic I didn't used to like.
We all were. We've all
Well,
we've all fell victim to the feast of nonsense at least half a dozen times. Every single one of us on this panel, without exception. I mean, Brian figured all this out a couple of weeks before we all did, and you know, there's that. But
it's never going to stop, is it? Go on.
that's it. We all fell victim to it because there's a convenience to it. The moment you get over the disbelief and the shock and awe and the paradigm change, you're into, well, I want to share this with others. And even normies will have a certain amount of feast of nonsense coursing through their veins for some reason. I don't know how it happens. You stumble across a normie and suddenly they've got this ingrained knowledge of space that you're like, why are you parroting this off to me? Are you a space enthusiast? No. But I know all about that space is real. Listen to me disseminate some dumbed down nonsense that you've heard 30,000 times in a really crude manner, because that'll show you.
I heard of one of Eric DeBay's. I heard one of Eric DeBay's, his recent video yesterday, and it's called "How to Shut Up Flat Earthers."
I don't get the title.
Right? Sorry?
I don't get the title. He's juxtaposing.
Yeah.
It's circumnavigation. I watched the video, and I was a bit left kind of confused, if I'm honest. I mean, I get his point. Obviously, it's a fairly clear point. But go ahead, Brian.
Well, yeah, I was nearly leaving a load of comments telling them to shut the F up and stop talking rubbish. Because
What was the name of it? What was the name of it, Brian?
How to
it
shut up
was
flat
how to
earthers.
shut up flat earthers forever. And he came up with one thing, right? It's like, no, you're going to need a lot more than that to shut me up. But the point is that he pointed out how we are not free to travel south of 60 degrees south, past 60th degrees south, right? So leave us travel, leave us experience, leave us find out why, right? If we're all so wrong, leave us do that. Now, I understand when he said that, I was like, yeah, okay, leave people have free travel. Yeah. If it's not a big secret, then leave people have free travel. Leave them explore Antarctica, what they claim to be Antarctica, whatever it is, south of 60 degrees parallel, right? But then he said, or show us blah, 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 blah. It's like, are you stupid, Eric? It's like, show us. Why would anyone accept anything they'd show you? They've already showed you what you're looking for and what they claimed to be showing you. And it was a load of nonsense more than one time.
Shows how dumb I am. So his point was, the point of his video is to say, look, they've locked off Antarctica. So his title is to say, how did they shut up flat earthers forever? They stopped you travelling. I just didn't understand the connection. I'm obviously a bit slow on the uptake, but there we go. Yeah, why would you demand that NASA tell you what the sky is, for example? What? Yeah, they've already lied to you once, they'll just lie to you again.
Yeah, exactly. So him saying that leave us have free travel, and I would call it aided exploration, not like just go off into the wilds. Like I would want aided exploration, the same way as if I get lost in the jungle, that there should be able to be somebody come and help you and find you, right? That's okay. But when you start saying, or show us, blah, 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 a direct flight going this direction, it's like, Eric, just go ahead. I mean, why would you trust anything they tell you? No one's going to trust that they show you because they want to show you a load of rubbish that supports their rubbish. Do you know what I mean? It's just naive to expect your enemy to give you the evidence that kills their argument.
If I may say something, I feel like they would have to take somebody, you know, on the opposite side, say one of you guys, for instance. I just feel like if you know, one of us would be able to go with while they're doing it, and they do these things, it would be a good start.
Why?
It's not going to shut
love
us
it.
all up.
What-
but
Very
it
telling.
would
Hold
at
on.
least-
Everyone
is
stop.
going on?
Stop.
What are we-
Hold on.
what are we off
Hold
to
on. Hold
see?
on. Very telling. What's your name, sorry? Chaos?
This is Shen.
Shen.
Yeah.
Shen. So what I heard then is, well, it'd be a good start if they could start to prove it to you by taking you on the exploration that Eric Debay detailed. The first thought that crossed my mind, just to contrast that, was, why the hell would I need to do that? I mean, if I'm an explorer and want to find some new lands, I'm going to need the ability to go and find them. But beyond that, in terms of proving something to me, why would I need that? I don't need that. To know it's flat. I don't need
Well,
any of those things.
You wouldn't, right? You wouldn't, and they wouldn't either. So it would never happen. But if it were to happen, I would totally volunteer to do it.
I mean, if I'm getting a free holiday out of it, I'll be honest, and it was monitored, catered, yeah, I'd definitely do that for free.
Do what?
Go on a free holiday.
Exactly. What are you going to see? What's going to prove the Earth's flat?
You're not hear
Do
me?
you have to see a secret Nazi base, or
I just told
What-
you
what-
it wouldn't achieve.
Lemuria?
I mean,
is
there
that
might
where
be
we're going?
there might be a motivation for a glober to show me how globe shaped it is on that trip, and I go, oh yeah, by all means. And when they sit me down and go, oh, you've got to listen to this lecture in the, you know, in the studio that we've got set up on the boat, so that you can have it all explained to you for an hour a day, I'll be like, oh, that's a bit of a downer. But yeah, I'll listen to you lecture me about how it's a sphere for an hour. No worries. And then I get to spend the rest of the day just looking at the sites and seeing the stuff. Excellent. Yeah, I'll do that. But in terms of what they'll actually achieve when they sit me down and tell me about how their claimed route proves something, I'll be like, no, we're navigating this entire journey flat. If we get lost, we're going to be using the stars to find where our position is again, and that'll be done flat. So I know that we're going to navigate our way flat, and should we get lost, the last resort backup method is to measure it flat with the stars parallel to our flat plane that we're travelling on right now. Now, nothing that you'll do in terms of how we're navigating and how we're travelling around on this boat or plane or whatever we're using is going to be sphere-shaped, ever. So are you going to convince me in some hall for an hour a day that what we're doing is somehow spherical? They're not. So it is just a free holiday with some numpties that think it might convince them of a sphere. They might be along for the ride as well, but I don't care about them particularly.
How was any of that going to make the geometric? How was any of that going to make the horizon geometric? None of it.
Exactly.
Just to go back to Debay's point, this is not one I like anyway. It's one that's existed, that the Antarctic Treaty in some way proves the Earth's flat or not a ball. I can't make that connection. At best, it's kind of supporting evidence of you being lied to. Because if you can't make peace anywhere else, why can you make peace there? But as to the nature of Earth, to me, it's a kind of a non sequitur argument.
I don't know. Do you not think he gets a pass? I get it. It's an early newbie entrance to a conspiratorial aspect of flat Earth. They've locked down everything. What is it? The 60th parallel? Is that where they've locked everything down?
But why does it prove flat? Why can't it just prove that there's Nazi bases in Antarctica?
Other than the geography being very different to how a ball is suggested to be. Now, I don't think there's an ice ring around us. And yes, I know from past history that we've found, quote, new worlds in, quote, Space. What are you saying, flat earther, that they found new worlds in space? Yes, space used to be out towards the horizon, and look on some old maps where they called them new worlds. Ever heard of a third world country? Now, developing country? Well, I wonder why they changed that vernacular. Well, because that's what they used to be called when they were discovered, the new worlds. And when you travelled out to the horizon, not knowing what you were going to find, you were travelling out in space. Well, what's space now? Well, it's the sky vacuum above your head. And where are the new lands that we could find? Oh, well, not anywhere else. And this is DeBay's point. Not where they were previously found, going further away out in the direction that's straight from where we knew we had land. No, we don't do that anymore. We're told we circumnavigate. Well, that was his point. And you're saying, I don't agree, or it's non sequitur. I mean, I don't necessarily think it would be the approach I would take, but I'm not Eric DeBay. But I think we're being a bit hypercritical.
Yeah.
I'm being specific there, Nathan, when I'm saying citing the North Atlantic Treaty and not being able to go south of 60 doesn't do anything other than demonstrate there are control systems. Well, what they are, you can't draw a conclusion from that. You can't say they're hiding an ice wall. You can't say, like I said, you could just as easily say it's where they bundled Hitler off to, and they've got a lovely continent there, because I've seen pictures from Admiral Byrd's thing where they've got freshwater lakes and stuff. None of that conspiracy can, I'm nearly there, really. None of that conspiracy can be used to validate the nature of the Earth. And that's what I'd say I would put it in, not in the feast of nonsense, but recognize that it doesn't demonstrate anything other than you're being lied to.
Yeah, I mean that's what's most important to some people. Now, first of all, the difference in us saying flat Earth and probably 95 of the other flat earthers saying flat Earth is that they have a conceptual idea of the new Earth that they haven't been able to see. That's what Eric DeBay is talking about. It's not like he's setting out to prove what we're proving, or demonstrating what we're demonstrating, or exposing what we're exposing about the geometry or any of that. But what he is doing is the same thing that you would. Well, here's why it's important to maybe someone who wants to discover that they've been lied to. If you have a girlfriend and you suspect that she's cheating, and your buddy goes, "Hey, why don't you ask her to look at her phone?" And then you go, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And you go, "Hey, babe, let me look at your phone." And she doesn't show you. Well, it just makes you so much more curious about what's in that phone. That's what it's like telling people that you can't go 60 degrees past south.
I thought you were going to reference him back to debate. Roto, did you want to say something? You can be next, and then
I wanted to. I had
okay. Go ahead, Roto.
I'll wait for Roto.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Nathan, my friend, mi amigo, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Why do you ask the housekeeping questions?
Keep us frosty, keep us aware of the arguments that have come to fruition, been fought over and won. It's to keep us all well aware of every argument that's ever taken place. The reason new ones get added is because we have new arguments.
What's the source of the arguments?
Us debating about it.
Are they globe arguments?
Some of them are overcomes of globe arguments. In other words, they're rebuttals to positions that globe proponents take. In the case of any evidence of the distance to the geometric edge, or wherever I ask for Earth curve, that's been adapted because of the black swan.
So the first question is what?
Typically, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
And that's been addressed with what for anybody that's listening?
Nothing. There is no overcome for that.
Well, I mean, what do we have to say on this side about the geometric horizon? What do we have for that?
If the Earth was a sphere, radius 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet as laid down in the Earth curve maths. Distance to horizon in the Black Swan is beyond the geometric limitations of an Earth sphere radius 3959. Therefore, the horizon is not Earth curve, and the Earth is not a sphere.
If you had never heard that, and you were fresh out of high school with the education, and you heard that, what would that do for your mindset as Nathan? What do you think? Would that be enough? If
it would be too much.
Yes or no?
It would be too much. I wouldn't understand it. If I heard that just off the bat as a glober, I probably wouldn't understand it. It's it's indicative of the response.
Do you have anything else?
Go on.
Is there anything else on the topic that's more easily digestible?
Yeah.
For someone.
Yeah, the one I always use, and most of the panel would agree with me, it's the easiest opener, which is debunking the sky vacuum. The whole heliocentric Earth in a sky vacuum, ball in a vacuum premise hangs on the idea that space is real. The space around it is the model that the model is named after. It's the heliocentric sun at center model. In other words, you've got the ball Earth moving around the sun in space in a sky vacuum. So if you ask somebody to tilt their head up and go, do you think that's a sky? Do you think that's a vacuum? Or first ask them, preface it by asking them what a vacuum is, get them to detail it to you, then nod your head up and ask them if they think that's a vacuum.
So
is that it?
From the panel or any, well, just one more thing. Just looking for a hook, right? That what is a bit of information that actually gets a person that's in neutral to look this way.
I don't know.
What
I don't know. It's like saying, it's like asking it's like asking a razor blade what it's like to be a comb. We can't answer that. Can't. We can ask Dubay and we can ask Sargent. That's who we can ask those questions. Here at the tip of the spear, it's yes, it's sharp, but it's also specific. It's also designed for a very unique job. Is the job of the tip of that spear to neutralize newbies and no? They get near the end of that spear and their head comes off. It's just how it is. Now, we can't both cater to newbie who needs to be massaged into, look, I know you've got an idea about the Earth flying through a sky vacuum around the sun, and that's why we're turning and the sun's coming up and going down. I know you've got all those ideas. However, it's basically all wrong. Now, let me massage you into an idea of how the world could be with an ice wall around it and a 60th parallel that you can't go past and a North Pole at the centre and planes and boats traversing around in a circle when they travel west or east. Now, can you understand how that conceptually could work? You do? Well, there you go. Now you can relieve yourself of one paradigm and enter this paradigm, which has a whole load of hors d'oeuvres that you've already gobbled. You know, those hors d'oeuvres I mentioned earlier, you just swallowed about 5 without realising it. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, now you've got a nice little paradigm to replace your old one. Isn't that nice? Do we do that here?
No.
No. No, we don't. Unfortunately, at the tip of the spear, there's not much time for lunch, for sitting down at the feast of nonsense and saying, you might not want to eat that because it contains nuts. And by nuts, I mean several heliocentric presuppositions. Now, you can eat it because it looks like it's got quite a lot of juicy flat earth ingredients in there, doesn't it? Quite a lot of tasty measuring of moons at certain heights off a flat earth and travelling around in circles on a flat earth. Looks like it's flat earth related, doesn't it? Yeah, you might not want to eat that. Sod that! Eat what you like. I don't care. When you meet me with that stuff coursing through your veins, there's a good chance it'll get your head removed. Oh well, that's not my problem. I didn't make that meal.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I say
Okay.
something now?
Mm.
I just
Zeros has been waiting ages.
I was after Roto. As far as the Feast of Nonsense or the non sequitur or category error, whatever you want to call it, I would say outside of celestial navigation, Black Swan, second law of thermodynamics, all of the things that we kick it here with science physics, I would say what 10th put up on there as part of a greater Feast of Nonsense, because it's the enemy, if you will, with documents. That document of the NASA document where it's highlighted, where they admit, and it's in all their documents, all military documents, all you see is stationary flat earth, stationary flat surface, whatever. To me, even though those don't rank in what we're doing here, still, I can understand if Eric Debay would use something like that versus the wall argument, because I was there. I was in the Feast of Nonsense. That's all I had before I met FED. That's all we have out there.
Zeros.
So
We,
can I
we-
finish? Can
we
I finish,
use
please?
it.
Can I finish, please? I'm speaking as an advocate for the normies who don't know FED yet and only know those ones with 50,000 to a
Go
million
ahead,
subscribers
Zeros.
like
You
Eric.
don't have to
said.
preface it. You've got the mic. Go ahead. You don't have to preface it anymore.
You know what I'm
Go ahead.
saying? Okay, yeah. That's what they have out there, because we know that Nathan's not getting the love on the algorithm like Eric Debay and them, but they got something. They got Feast of Nonsense. They're not getting the good vitamins. They're getting fed mostly, GMOs, if you will, of nonsense. Granted that. But I was just saying, the thing that 10 put up on here is another part of that. But it has some substance to it because it's a NASA official document. Freedom of Information Act, they're up there. And you can see them admit in their own documentation what we say, stationary, flat Earth. So some of the Feast of Nonsense things have greater nutrients and value than others. And Eric Debay's wasn't on that level, but what 10 put on there, I like stuff like that because it's the enemy admitting, some of what we're saying. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the distinction. Okay, so if you look at the sea sparrow stuff, there are some statements that NASA you allude to. They're quite clear
Eli, can you
in
mute,
what
please?
in what their implications are. Yeah, you demonstrate this has all been done on a stationary flat plane, as stated. But if we go to the 60th parallel, even if they say yes, we militarized this zone, you will not get past. It doesn't have anything other than a sweet taste in the mouth. Yeah, but it doesn't support anything for me. Yeah, and it's not that you shouldn't discuss them or look at them or be introduced to the buffet, but you've just got to recognize what you're feeding on. Yeah, recognize what's a quality, nutritious flat Earth meal and what is just another amuse-bouche at the Feast of Nonsense.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I do. I mean, it would behoove the person looking into this to know that there's a difference between uh, the Earth being a level plane and delving into the history behind them lying about it. But that's the thing, it's not just about the geometry for most people. It's like, okay, it's flat, but then there's all this other stuff. All this other stuff being just, things that like, for instance, the cosmos. What the heck was I doing spending my time, you know, thinking about that stuff for when I could have been thinking about where the edge is? Is there an edge? Where am I at? Is this place contained? All of these things are kind of not geometry related, but they're just as important. It's not important for proving that the Earth is not geometrically a globe, but it's important to the conversation almost equally for somebody who's new.
I agree, Eli, but then recognizing, like I said, what you're going to do, whether there is land there or not land there. How do we prove it? That's part of the limitation and recognition. It's not a fight you can have. You can fantasize about it. But for now, whilst you know your institutions are liars, you're never going to get to the truth of that. So focus on what you can prove to yourself.
Good morning, fellas.
Hey,
Hey,
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
You sound
Good
terrible.
morning.
Could,
You might
could
sound
I say
awful.
something on that document, them documents that come out from aerospace and NASA and stuff? They always preface something in there, and people generally look past it. Like, for instance, when D. Rose was referring to it there earlier, he said stationary plane, but they preface it differently than that. They say stationary non-rotating plane. Now, why are they adding in non-rotating and stationary? Stationary is in it's not moving up or down, and non-rotating is in it's not going around in a circle.
Are you
Completely
trying to say
unmoving.
they were ready for Dell?
Well, that nonsense came from them. That nonsense came from them. Do you know what I mean? Didn't it?
What he's saying
upward
is,
moving earth, that's
what-
there. It's nonsense.
if you consider the hors d'oeuvres we've been using as an analogy, if instead of olives, they're poison, well, these are the antidotes for the poison. So in other words, they're training a pilot, and regardless of what beliefs he may have about the spinning earth or the rising up earth, it needs to be stated explicitly at this stage, bearing in mind they know what indoctrination has been given to every single person that comes past that particular doorway. They need to counteract the poison in their bloodstream so that they know what they're going to actually do. Fly over the ground, considering it flat and considering it not moving. And when they state not moving, they say stationary, so that it's not ambiguous, and non-rotating. Again, completely unambiguous. It's clear what they're saying. Not moving in any way is another way of putting that, isn't it, Brian? But they've got to counteract what you might be believing it to be. That's spinning or moving up or down or left and right. Who cares? So long as it's explicitly stated. And antidotally, is that the right word, Adam? As an antidote?
Well, yeah.
I have to read this on the back of that before anyone else goes or tend to kill me. It's from what is it? Royal Air Force College, right? We've heard this before, but may as well go over it again.
You post it.
So, yeah, I'll post it.
I'll do some.
You want me to do it right now?
Because obviously
before I
you're on a
read it,
phone.
or
Yeah, if you can post it, I'll post it. I'll put it up on screen while you're doing it, and just because I'm good like that while you're doing it on your phone, because obviously you can't do both at the same time, I'll give us some soothing music. Dun,
all right.
dun, 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 dun,
The,
dun, 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 dun. Is that enough time? There we go. Look at that
yeah,
timing.
I think they're both in.
Thank you,
Mhm.
10th. Okay. Yeah, D-Lot.
So, Earthly, Andrew Hill, parentheses, in quotes, Darwin rules, okay, in quotes, 12th of July, page 127, close parentheses, says, quote, even in The Spectator, we rarely find serious assertions that the sun goes around the earth, end quote. One can, of course, believe anything one likes as long as the consequences of that belief are trivial. But when survival depends on belief, then it matters that belief corresponds to manifest reality. We therefore teach navigators that the stars are fixed to the celestial sphere, which is centered on a fixed earth and around which it rotates in accordance with laws clearly deducible from common sense observation. The sun and moon move across the inner surface of this sphere and hence perforce go around the earth. This means that students of navigation must unlearn a lot of the confused dogma they learned in school. Most of them find this remarkably easy because the dogma is as may be, but the real world is as we perceive it to be. If Andrew Hill will look in the Journal of Navigation, he will find that the Earth-centered universe is alive and well, whatever his readings of The Spectator may suggest. Darcy Reddyhoff, Royal Air Force College, Granville.
Beautifully read. Indeedy, unlearning the nonsense. Well, in this case, there's a new layer that we unearthed when we first became flat earthers that we fondly refer to as the Feast of Nonsense. That is to say, all of the rhetoric-based arguments for a globe Earth stacked up in false dichotomy against nonsense that you haven't even learnt yet, that you're told you have to believe as a flat earther, like 3,000-mile sun, ice wall, 60th parallel having armed guards all the way around it. Firstly, that is frankly stupid. To suggest that you can guard that amount of square footage effectively, people would be sneaking through if they were motivated to do so. That's the bottom line.
Well, the Marines said that they were watching 99% of the water, so they kind of claim that they do.
Yeah, I'm sure
Even
they do.
as stupid as it may sound.
Well, maybe. I'm sure they are, if they say so.
And there's also these reports of this one gentleman that keeps getting, I don't know where he's from. He's not from the United States, but he's been arrested 3-4 times trying to breach it. There's a couple of videos where pro flat earthers were on their vessels and they were trying to go, in an area away from that little peninsula area where the so-called, where you get to see the penguins and all that junk, where they let you go for the tour for 30,000, 50,000 allegedly. And they were stopped by a naval vessel.
I'm just going to stop you.
Video.
I'm just going to stop you for a second. I'm really sorry, Dolores. Right, let me give you a little hypothetical scenario. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Hope Diamond. I'm going to show it on TV and show it being put in a vault. And that vault is surrounded by lasers. And that laser chamber is surrounded by a moat with sharks. And the sharks have got freaking laser beams on their heads. And surrounding the moats with the laser beam sharks and the lasers around the vault, I show a door. And that door is armed, it's got armed guards on it. Yeah? Now that is what I show the public. Then I show the public multiple people getting caught. And some of them meet a very grisly end, trying to get to the diamond. Okay. So we've got a scenario where we've got a valuable piece of information or item, in this case diamond, in a certain location that people are trying to get to and are getting caught. Meanwhile, the diamond is somewhere else and the house is entirely CGI and there are no people trying to break in. Now, does that change every news report I've just described to you about the men trying to break in, getting caught, some of them getting killed? No, it doesn't change that report. Does it change the CGI that I rendered in order to create a house that has the diamond in it? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Does it change the fact that let's just say for the sake of this example, there isn't even a diamond in the first place. It doesn't even exist. Right? But we're all focused on that diamond. We're all looking at the space that's supposed to occupy its existence and the people getting caught trying to get it. Meanwhile, in some other part of the magician's sleeve, you know what I mean? If this was actually a secret, none of us would know about it, would we? And if we were so inclined to say, oh, well, sod this, we have decided that we are not interested in their assertions that you can circumnavigate the Earth as a sphere, north-south. I'm just going to go out and find the new worlds. And we go out and our heads get blown off because there is actually armed guards marking it with radar and they're immediately intercepting any particular boat that tries to go past the 60th parallel. We wouldn't know about that either, though, would we? Right? That would all get hushed up very, very quickly. And we'd never find out about it because the media is entirely controlled. Well, when you know that the media is entirely controlled and you hear stories from the media of people going past the 60th parallel and getting arrested, why do you entertain any of it? Pray tell.
Well, I'm not talking about. Hold up, the reports there about that gentleman I said from out another country. I get that what you're saying on that, but the video that I said as far as the gentlemen that were in their vessel, it wasn't filmed by news reports. It wasn't filmed by the military or third. It was filmed by if you and Brian were on your shipping boat or whatever vessel, and you went out there towards the 60th parallel, and Brian's camera, cell phone or whatever, happened to see maybe, half a click away this ship coming towards them to apparently intercept them from their path of whatever angle they were going, whatever direction they were going towards that 60th parallel. that video there is what I'm speaking about as far as, and to suggest or imply that those pro flat earthers did that to poison the well with a feast of nonsense. Yeah, that's, you can say that. But then again, it's not that complex and sophisticated to for them to have done that, had it on the camera, and happened to post it on their social media, just like we see other things on social media. It doesn't come from the news, but I understand where you're coming from as far as the guy being arrested in that tabloid. Even though it wasn't on the news, it was on social media, outlets. And not all social media outlets are feast of nonsense. The internet is both got information that's actually going on and information that's been propagated as false narratives. So we have to
Yeah,
kind of
because
be in the
what
middle.
happens when those people who were allegedly arrested were part of the psyop? What if they were agents and they just staged the whole thing, just like Nathan said? They were the diamond. They wanted you to see them get caught, just to show you can't go past.
Or
like that.
Or
I like
hang
that.
on,
I
or
like that.
hang on, or they already tell you that you're going to get arrested if you go past the 60th parallel. Public, it's known information. Go there, get arrested. Just like when I try to run into the U.S. Embassy in Dublin, I'm going to get put on the ground with handcuffs. I mean, what are you trying to prove? You went to the 60th parallel, you got arrested. Yeah, that's what they tell you is going to happen.
Nathan, may I transition to a question for the panel and the audience?
I'm going to go with no.
Okay. What do
with that? No, that would have been spicy.
all right. Star-based reference navigation, Earth-based reference navigation, and center of Earth-based reference for navigation. What do they all have in common?
They're all navigation. The clue is in the title for each.
That's not the answer. Next. Okay, more clues. More clues.
They all need
All
a
right,
flat plane. They're all done on a Cartesian grid.
Almost. It's all close. But let me. What is common with all three of these things? Let's explain each one. When you have a star map, you're not referencing the Earth. You're referencing the stars as a map. That's the equatorial concept, equatorial EQ Mount telescope. They're referencing the stars based on the vernal equinox and a disk that goes all the way to the celestial sphere, one big equator, not just the Earth's equator. Anything above that, you see. Anything below that, you don't see stars. So that's that one. The Earth-based one is the one that we just heard from NASA. Hey, when you guys fly, just assume the Earth is stationary and not rotating. The center of Earth reference is celestial navigation, which is you're on top of a dingleberry curved Earth, supposedly, but really all the measurements are being taken from the center of Earth. So sextant angles from hell with Danny Faulkner. What do they all have in common? The answer was given in my description. All are represented as stationary, non-rotating. All of them work on that basis.
Planes.
Isn't that interesting? Whether you use the star map, whether you use the Earth's surface, or whether you think the Earth's surface is at the center, all have to be stationary and non-rotating.
Planes.
Well, that's the NASA advice to their pilots. You got to assume the Earth is stationary, non-rotating. That's
plane.
It keeps adding plane, but you're just not acknowledging a stationary, non-rotating plane.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Indeed. Earth is flat, so it's not shocking. When you're navigating it, if you were to take it as read, the fundamentalist religious premise that we're on a sphere Earth, then as a plane operator, just invert the argument that Brian puts across regularly. It's one of his best arguments in terms of how the plane negotiates the surface. Now, to maintain lift, it's slightly nose up, right? It's running parallel in level flight, as they call it. Well, that notion, when flipped on its head, and a sphere Earth taken into consideration, leaves a void opening up ahead of you in that circumstance. So you go into level flight on the ball. Well, below you is opening up at 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that means you've got more space to fly in under those circumstances. Yeah? Well, if you head towards the ground, parallel with your position when in level flight, under the assumption that no, the further I go forward, the more the ground will fall away ahead of me, I'm all right, you'll end up crashing into the ground. In other words, it needs to be made explicitly clear, no, you deal with it level. There isn't an extra space opening up ahead of you at 8 inches per mile squared. It doesn't exist. If you try and go into that space that would be there if the Earth was curving away from you, you'll crash into the ground.
Well, can I add a preface there, a couple of small caveats to what you said? This is for everybody. When you're talking about the plane having a nose-up position, you must add in above horizontal and avoid the word level, because level is a word that the ballers can beg the question with and start BSing somebody who doesn't know any different and start telling them level is equidistant from the center of a sphere. When you stick to the word horizontal, which is a constant orientation that doesn't change, that means that to do what they need to do, what they would need to do to fly around the globe, would mean that at 550, once they reach cruising altitude, at that exact point, that's the proving point. Because if they start flying with an above horizontal pitch at that point, then it's not a globe. But if it is a globe, then from that point, they'll be exactly horizontal at that point, and then gradually over the course, from second to second, they'll have an accumulated below horizontal pitch that will, at 550 miles per hour, would accumulate to 7.9 degrees below horizontal per hour, right? So that means that they have to fly with a nose down below horizontal, a below horizontal pitch to go around the globe. Now, there's other caveats to that.
Just before you give them, because that's where my point dovetails into yours, which is to say, you're suggesting, that's how I was trying to flip it back, because you're saying, in order to negotiate a sphere, you must nose down below the horizon, if you consider the horizon to be on a sphere, regardless of that part of the discussion. You've got to nose down to go round the curve of the Earth. Well, in my scenario, when I say you take Brian's examples, which is to say that you've got to nose down, much better way of phrasing it, below the horizon, if you're negotiating a curved Earth falling away from you 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that being the case, you'll hit the ground, right? Because you follow it, nose down, and what happens? You hit the ground, because you're not nose up above the horizon, maintaining level flight, not hitting the ground, you're heading towards it, and it isn't opening up a void in front of you.
In reality, see, what you're actually, in reality, you're not nosing down below the horizon, you're nosing down below the horizontal line that's parallel to mean sea level throughout the Earth. So you have a horizontal line that you've created at cruising altitude, and to go around the globe, you have to nose down. But once you nose down, this is important, you see. This is what people must understand. This is why I keep pushing the lift effect. Once you're nose down, then you won't have 100% positive lift. And with majority of wings, you have no lift. Well, you lose basically all lift. That means you don't
sure
have,
about this?
Hang on. Yes, 100%.
I'm going to try and counter it. I'm not Glober, but I'm going to try and counter it when you do. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, unless you've got an above horizontal pitch, you will not oppose 100% of the airplane's weight, because you must oppose weight with lift. So if you don't have enough lift, so let's just say you have a 2 degree below horizontal pitch with a cambered wing, and you have 60% positive and 40% negative lift. That means there's only 60% of the plane's weight being accounted for, which officially admitted by Boeing is a descent. You can't not descend.
Okay, well, that's where you overcome my little dance I was going to take you on. Right, so long as you, notwithstanding the fact that you would actually be in a descent which is my point to begin with, right? That you're in a descent and going to hit the ground, right? Notwithstanding that part of your disclaimer that you just gave. Okay. I don't even bother now you've said that. Because that undoes everything I'm about to say.
Yeah, because you won't be able to oppose the weight. That's the point of the lift.
Let me just try anyway. Okay.
Yeah, go on. You go ahead.
Well, notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding their notions that aren't real of gravity and holding you to the centre of a sphere Earth in their force that's not a force that you can think of as a force with a bending four-dimensional space-time. So once you put all of that presuppositional garbage on one side and say, okay, we know that's not true, but you have to preface it with they will accept that it is, for me to make the point, that they'd just trim the aircraft. That's all they would do. In other words, you'd be nose down, according to your example, with respect to the sphere, but given their presuppositions of varying thicknesses of atmosphere that are consistent if you're maintaining level flight around the sphere Earth, then the only way you would do that is if you, A, were nose down below the horizon, but B, in terms of it not being a descent, because you would have the ground opening up, you just trim the aircraft and it would just follow that path through the even air that isn't going to work. We know it won't, but I'm just saying their argument could just be as simple to address that. They just trim it. They just trim the aircraft. No. And when they do trim it, they're trimming it to maintain level flight above a sphere. That's all they'd say, in my opinion.
Let me, Brian, on screen.
Just 1 second, Adam. I know what you have on screen. Just give me 1 second. This is the important part about. I just want to say this to Nathan. This is the important part about the lift effect. As soon as you have a below horizontal pitch, you're not accounting for the weight. So technically, you're gradually falling out of the sky. So the only way to have 100% of the plane's weight accounted for.
Okay, just stick to one or the other.
1 second.
Oh, I'm getting confused because you're flipping between. When you say you'd be falling out of the sky, that's only true if you reference to a flat plane that you're going to crash into. Absolutely correct. But
or globe, it wouldn't matter. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Oh, okay, go on. Then I'm still confused. Clarify then.
Hang on. What you're trying to add in for a globe is a changing horizontal, which means horizontal is just a local thing that can change over distance. It can't. Horizontal is horizontal. And as soon as you have a below horizontal pitch, which you have to have for a globe, to fly around the globe and follow the hold in altitude and fly around Earth curve, you can't have anything but a below horizontal pitch and one that accumulates. So no matter what you do, you will lose all your lift and you will fall directly out of the sky. Globe or flat, makes no difference. This is flight. Horizontal does not change. It's one orientation. You can't change from one horizontal to another.
Okay.
You can't do that. It's impossible.
I got you. But that's a fundamental premise that must change for a globe. So while you're saying it makes no odds either way, well, yeah, it does, because in reality, that's how it must work. But in globe nonsense that isn't comporting with reality, it must defy that principle that holds true always. In other words,
it can't.
I know it can't. I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's where we're in agreement, because that's where it debunks the globe, because they can't have that hold true in reality.
It doesn't matter in this, Brian.
Exactly.
Just to get the slides in, I'm talking about direction of down gravity, but if I use the same slides in terms of the denial of what happening in reality, as we've said, we've got the plane going across a flat plane using the angle vector, the gyroscopes in there. At no point, as it traverses that vector, which is defined by the gyroscopes, is there an issue with down. Look, it's the same in everything. So the aerodynamics stay the same. Okay. Now, if we do this over a curved surface, where, as you said at the beginning, Nathan, the ground is falling away. It's not only falling away, the orientation of down, and therefore the relative stabilization of the aerodynamics is changing. As the plane traverses with the same straight line vector defined by the gyroscopes in the plane, look what happens to down. Now, if we ignore it as down and just realize that suddenly the uplift to counter the weight is now suddenly in a different direction, this is why you would have to nose down to keep yourself aligned with this new direction of down to ensure you've got the same lift to keep yourself in the air. Does that help?
They always give you a new direction.
No.
You're accumulating it as well at a rate of 8 inches per mile.
What did you
squared.
say? Sorry, you're stimulating it.
It's a good point, but it's a red
Accumulating.
herring from Brian's point. And if I can make
Supporting
it
point.
to
Sorry,
let
hold
him
on,
know
Eli.
that I
Hold on.
understand it.
Hold on. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to round out shortly, but you say you're stimulating a new direction. Go from there.
Not stimulating. You're accumulating at a rate of 8 inches per mile squared a change in the direction of down if you're on a supposed ball. This is the consequence of traversing the ball where down is no longer parallel with each other, commensurate with the straight vector. And in doing so, what Brian's saying is, I'm describing it in terms of down, but what that does is change the aerodynamics, because the second down is no longer as changed by a rate of 0.009 degrees per kilometer. Yeah, then your aerodynamics are changing at that rate. Now do that over 50 kilometers of a straight line vector. The angle you've got is suddenly different. The aerodynamics of the plane no longer work. There is no longer the lift effect.
Perfect. With that stimulation of new directions, I'm going to say first and foremost, if you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Fortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Obviously, another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. Shout out to Sensual Goat, who gifted 5 memberships. Massive thank you for that. Stay tuned if you're watching an after show.